Paris, and salaries paid to so-called phantom employees at the town hall. The money was used as part of Chirac's drive for further power in the 1990s, at the end of his 18-year term as mayor.
Well, he finished his term as mayor of Paris in 1995, and after that he won 2 presidential elections in 1995 and in 2002. Now, the French public was very much aware of these very serious allegations against him of corruption, but it's a cultural problem in France. I think the French press is not strong enough. It didn't do a good job of holding him accountable.
A civil action is being settled by repayment of funds. Mr. Chirac lost his legal immunity against criminal charges after he retired. If found guilty, he could face a heavy fine and up to 10 years in prison. But in practice, he would be more likely to receive a small suspended sentence. Tim Friend, AlJazeera, Paris.
Preliminary results out of Estonia show the centre-right government will stay in power for a second term. Prime Minister Andrus Ansip's coalition has won a clear parliamentary majority. This is the Baltic country's first election as a Eurozone member. India's ruling Congress party is trying to gather support after a key partner announced that it's pulling out of the coalition government. The country's prime minister is already under pressure over corruption scandals involving top officials and ministers. The leader of India's main opposition party, the BJP, has hit out at Manmohan Singh, accusing him of indecisiveness and an inability to tackle corruption. Japan's chief cabinet secretary has been named as the acting foreign minister. Now, this follows the resignation of Seiji Maehara from the post. Maehara stepped down after admitting he received a political donation from a foreign national, an act which is illegal in Japan. Steve Chow has more from Tokyo.
At the Ogawa rubber mask factory, TV entertainers have replaced politicians on the assembly line. With 5 different prime ministers in 5 years in what is a seeming lack of leadership, there's been a growing disdain among Japanese for anything political.
Politicians' masks used to make up at least 50% of our orders. Now it's only 10%. The public feels politicians don't give us anything to look forward to.
That certainly is the current sentiment with Naoto Kan. The latest prime minister, less than a year on the job, has had approval ratings fall to a record low of 18%. He has so far ignored opposition calls for his resignation, stubbornly pushing through an unpopular budget.
We need to establish a fiscal policy that does not increase the debt. The hope people had for Khan and his party has changed to disappointment, despair and now anger.
The DPJ party, of which Khan leads, was swept into power for the first time in 2009. Back then, the majority believed its promises of changing the way politics was run here, that politicians could be less about politicking and more about representing the people. With opposition groups vowing to block the carrying out of the budget, threatening to stall the runnings of government, analysts say Khan needs to act much more decisively.
He is seen to be in control. I think Japanese voters in general are still pretty much prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt.
But decades of economic stagnation has seen patience grow thin. And the fear is that before too long, the revolving door of leadership will herald in yet another new face into Japanese politics. Steve Chow, AlJazeera, Tokyo.
One of the most traveled space shuttles, Discovery, is getting ready for its final journey after nearly 3 decades. Astronauts bid farewell to the rocket ship as they sealed its hatches with the International Space Station on Sunday. Discovery will fly a victory lap around the lab for picture-taking before heading back to Earth. It's scheduled to land on Wednesday and will be retired later this week. This is Al Jazeera, and these are the stories making the headlines. There are celebrations. These are the celebrations that followed the latest battle for the Libyan town of Misurata. Opposition fighters say they beat back the government forces, including tanks and artillery. At least 18 people were killed in the violence there. Anti-government forces say they are advancing on the capital, Tripoli. They held key oil terminals like this one at Ras Lanuf on Sunday. Some are calling on the international community to take part in air attacks targeting Muammar Gaddafi's regime. But Muammar Gaddafi is still clear and present. Libyan state television has broadcast an appearance by the Libyan leader in front of crowds in Tripoli's Green Square. And his forces, too, say they've made a British Special Forces team captured by Libyan opposition fighters outside Benghazi has been released. They boarded the HMS Cumberland in the Benghazi port on their way out of Libya. The soldiers were reportedly part of a diplomatic mission seeking to make contact with anti-government Gaddafi forces. U.S. crude oil is at a 30-month high, sitting at $105 right now. It's all because of attacks like this one a few days ago on an oil depot in Benghazi in Libya. The continuing instability and accompanying slowing of production there is hitting investor confidence. In Yemen, at least one person has died in clashes with government loyalists. 52 protesters were wounded in Ib city, 90 kilometers south of the capital, Sana'a. And another member of parliament has resigned from the ruling party, the 14th in the past week. Saudi Arabia is reported to be building up its security forces in the east. It comes in response to protests there, calling for more rights for Shia Muslims. New video posted on social media website appears to show a protest in Qatif on Friday. And security forces in Cairo have broken up a crowd of protesters who were trying to get access to the Ministry of Interior. Men in plain clothes armed with knives, petrol bombs and bricks also clashed with protesters. That's the headline. Stay with us for Listening Post.
Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at the Listening Post. This week, one story in Pakistan reported two different ways.
Was he a CIA contractor? Was he a diplomat?
The CIA agent and the media.
The protesters continue to chant.
Nigerian journalism gets a shakeup all the way from New York. China clamping down on the news media to keep the Jasmine Revolution from spreading to the Far East. And taking stock of the footage they call B-roll in our web video of the week.
Do you need shots of ordinary people doing things for your next commercial? We got that B-roll.
We got that B-roll.
A pretty big news story has been unfolding in Pakistan over the past few weeks. Don't feel bad if you've missed it. Much of the news media did too. Some of the outlets that did report the story got it wrong and may have done so deliberately. On January 27th, an American named Raymond Davis allegedly shot and killed two Pakistani men in Lahore who he claimed